Hi. So this is a video on how to replace the tank insulation on a SureTac Systems hot melt supply unit. The tools that you'll need for this job are your 1/8 inch hex wrench, and the supplies will be your tank insulation itself. The tank insulation comes in two varieties: the white Nomex, which is an upgrade, and the standard yellow fiberglass insulation. To get started, we will first want to make sure our machine is unplugged, and then we'll want to remove our front electrical cover. This is held on by 6 screws, 2 on each side, 2 on the top, and 2 under the front lip. Take those screws out, remove the cover, put it to the side. Next, we'll want to go to the back of the machine. We want to remove our pump cover. There are 2 screws located underneath. Take those out, remove the cover. Next, we're going to want to drop down our rear panel. There's 6 screws holding it on. You have 2 on each side and 2 up underneath this underside, or underneath this lip. This one over here that's not on the pump side, you'll be able to remove with your T-handle 1/8 inch wrench. If your pump is still installed, you'll need to use an L-key 1/8 inch wrench to be able to get that second screw. Once those are removed, very carefully drop this panel down. There are wires attached to it on the back side, so just very gently pull it down and let it rest on that wiring harness. And just do it in a way that is not going to put any stress on that wiring harness. Our next step is to remove the upper housing. To do this, there are 4 screws that attach it to the lower housing. They're on the inside. You have 2 back here, and you have 2 in the front. You're going to just gently lift this upper housing off of the tank. Before we remove our lower housing, let's take our rear panel. It's on our wiring harness, and kind of scoot those wires so we have a little bit of wiggle room. Let's just rest it on top of the tank. This way we can slide our lower housing up and over the back panel and the wiring harness without having to remove any wires from the plugs. Alright, so our next step is to remove the lower housing. There are screws located securing it to the frame. There are 2 underneath the back. There's 2 located by the pump. And there are several underneath the side flange on both sides. Once you remove those screws, you're going to gently pry that lower housing off of the lower frame. We're going to pull this straight up, and then we'll have to fish it around the wiring harness and that back panel. Just like that. And we'll take this lower housing, we're going to set that to the side. After that's complete, go ahead and take your back panel and its wiring harness, rest it on the back, ensuring there's no tension put on that wiring harness. So at this point we can take off our old insulation, just kind of rip it. I do recommend wearing gloves with this because the insulation is going to be dirty, plus it's fiberglass, it'll make you itch. Just get all this off, clean it up the best you can. You can do this while the tank is cold. The hardest part will be getting it out from behind this plate. If your pump is off, you can remove this back plate. That'll make it easier to access behind it. On this machine, doing it with the pump on, so we're just going to have to kind of pull it out and reach behind there. This is also a great opportunity to clean up your lower frame with some shop towels and mineral spirits. This insulation comes from STS with the cutouts already cut into it. This cutout right here is what goes around our pump. So you want to make sure it's oriented the right way. This cutout goes around the shaft in the front. So you're just going to gently take it. Try not to stretch it out too much. It should just fit and just slide right down. When you get down to this panel, just kind of gently take things, scoot them out of the way. Don't bend it too much, just get it so it's kind of fits down. You just have to inchworm it until it's scooted all the way down. For the upper two parts, there are no cutouts. I do recommend keeping the staples off to one side of the machine. This insulation, it can be kind of tough to get on. A lot of times it's going to be stapled so tight that it doesn't feel like it's going to want to stretch around the tank, but it will. But like anything you're working on, you really need to go slow and just be patient with it, inch it down. The last thing we want to do is rip the staples or rip the insulation. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and reinstall our panels onto this machine, but before we do that, let's take this as an opportunity to clean up this panel. And actually, we'll clean up all the panels with our mineral spirits and shop towels. Just make sure your towel is soaked and just rub back and forth. Alright, so now it's time to reinstall all of our panels and get this back to where we need it. So we're going to start by putting our rear panel up top. Slip our lower housing over it and around that wiring harness. Down. Something important here is there's a lower lip underneath this lower housing, which goes behind this aluminum plate. The holes will line up. If it's in front of it, the screws won't attach. We're going to pull this back. Let's pull our wiring harness back to the corner right there, so it's not pinched between the lower housing and the insulation. It's just resting, coming up from that corner. Alright, so now it's time to reinstall all of our panels and get this back to where we need it. So we're going to start by putting our rear panel up top. slip our lower housing over it and around that wiring harness, down. Something important here is there's a lower lip underneath this lower housing which goes behind this aluminum plate. The holes will line up. If it's in front of it, the screws won't attach. We're going to pull this back. Let's pull our wiring harness back to the corner right there, so it's not pinched between the lower housing and the insulation. It's just resting, coming up from that corner. Installing your upper housing can be challenging because you're going to have to slide the tank around and fit it inside of this the tank seal. Just set this up, kind of slide it down around the tank. Once we have our pieces in place, now we can start installing our screws. All right, well that's it. That's how you replace the tank insulation on a SureTech Systems hot melt supply unit. This process is the same whether it's a 2400 series machine like we did today or a 2300 series handheld machine. After you're done, make sure you test your hoses to make sure they heat and nothing happened to the wiring harness when we remove that back panel. Also make sure you bring the tank to temperature and test your pump. Make sure the motor turns on. If everything is good, you can move on to whatever else you need to do with the machine, clean it up, and ship it out. That's it. Thanks.